Hey guys, it's me, Chris Baker. I'm the founder and executive director of the Other Ones Foundation here in Austin, Texas. And welcome to the second installment of our Nonprofit Success series. Today we're gonna be talking about forming a nonprofit corporation and filing for tax-exempt status. In this part, we're gonna be specifically talking about forming a nonprofit corporation in Texas. So if you live in Texas, this video is for you. If you don't, you may look elsewhere for resources, but you're welcome to learn along with us. Let's get into it. All right, so the reason that we're making this video here today is because this process, especially this first part of filing to form an entity, is super easy. I know it can look pretty daunting, but we would like for you to hang on to your resources, do this yourself, because it is a lot easier than it looks. And we're gonna go ahead and break it down into a few very easy to follow steps. There's a few simple things that we gotta do in order to get this corporation formed, and we're gonna do it through the Texas Secretary of State. The very first thing that we wanna do is make sure that the name that you've chosen for the entity that you want to form has not been taken. That is a very common reason for these applications to be kicked back, because the name has already been taken. So real easy to figure out whether the name that you've chosen has been taken or not. Just go ahead and call the Secretary of State's office. You can do that at the number listed below. It's 512-463-5555. There's also going to be a link in the description. So go first, make sure that the name you've chosen for your corporation is not taken. It should also be noted that the legal name, the legal entity name for your corporation might not be the name that you choose to do business as. So for example, the Other Ones Foundation was formed as Other Ones Foundation Incorporated. That's the full legal entity name we do business as, the Other Ones Foundation. Not a huge difference, but one is the legal entity name and one is what we do business as. Okay, now at this point there are gonna be some decisions to make about how you wanna form yourself or how you wanna form your organization. And as we go through the various steps, we'll kind of talk about some of those decisions. But the next step is filling out a Form 202 with the Secretary of State. So there will be a link in the description to the Form 202. There's a sample Form 202 that you can print out and look at. And then there's one that you go and you actually fill it out online. Form 202. Now, as you're filling out the Form 202, you're gonna see that there are some decisions that you're gonna be making along the way and how you actually form and organize your entity. And we'll kind of go through that as we go through the Form 202. But typically, you're gonna wanna have yourself as the organizer or someone else as the organizer. You're gonna need at least 3 people to organize under. Usually that would be like a board president or board chair, a board treasurer, and a secretary. Now, you don't have to have these officers listed by title on the Form 202, but you are gonna need at least 3 officers. Let's dive right into the Form 202 now. Article 1 is gonna be the name of your entity, which we've already called the Secretary of State to make sure that that name's not already taken. Again, the most common reason for these things to get kicked back is because the name has already been taken. Article 2 is gonna be the registered agent. This is you as the organizer of the nonprofit. It could be somebody else, but very likely if you're the one watching this video, it's you. So it asks you there to put the business address. You can just put your home address or whatever address you want to use as sort of the headquarters of the organization. All right, Article 3 is the board of directors. And so this is the group of people that we've already talked about. That could be you and some of your friends, you and some business partners who have kind of gathered or coalesced around this idea that you have to start a nonprofit. Okay, so in Article 3, this is where we're gonna have to start thinking about how this entity is actually gonna form and govern itself. There's a bunch of language there in the 3rd article about this board being the founding board until the entity has had its first meeting of its members. And what's meant by that is that this board of directors is just sort of chosen as the founding board of directors, and then at a later time, the group's members will get together and choose the next board of directors and any successive board of directors if the organization is going to have members at all. which we get into in Article 4, members and membership. All right, Article 4 is on membership. This is just asking whether the nonprofit is going to have members or not. And now bear with me because this might get a little bit confusing, but the members are separate from the organization's board of directors. Membership is sort of like the for-profit's corollary of shareholders. So in the for-profit world, you have a corporation, they make money, people buy shares and become shareholders in the company. And the shareholders typically in some way govern the corporation and choose the corporation's board of directors and CEO. The same can be said of nonprofit organizations that have memberships, but not all nonprofit organizations have memberships. Typically, the types of nonprofits that have members are trade associations, chambers of commerce, social clubs, the type of nonprofits that might be governed by a much larger group of people. And typically, the way that someone becomes a nonprofit member is by being a donor to that nonprofit or a member of that nonprofit's associative body. Let's look at Article 5 now. This is purpose. Now, let's be clear, you do not need to put your mission statement, vision statement, or core values. We're gonna have a whole video about when all that stuff comes into play. But for right now, we're just talking specifically about what you do and very broadly. So this could be, we are fighting homelessness. We are advocating for environmental wellness. We are bringing health care to people. This is a very broad but sort of specific statement of what you do. For example, a mission statement might be something like, and I don't know where I'm getting this from, transitioning Austin's homeless neighbors into an engaged community through shelter, opportunity, and support. You do not need to put something like that on the Form 202. On the Form 202, you can just say, serving the needs of people experiencing homelessness. Easy. And then Section 2, this next part, the language is really important for filing for federal tax exemption status later, and that is this.
1. The corporation is organized exclusively for charitable, religious, educational, scientific purposes under Section 501c3 of the Internal Tax Revenue Code or corresponding section of any future federal tax code. 2. Upon dissolution of the corporation after paying or making provision for the payment of all the legal liabilities of the corporation's assets shall be distributed for one or more tax exempt purposes within the meaning of Section 501c3 of the Internal Tax Revenue Code or the corresponding section of any future federal tax code or shall be distributed to the federal government or to a state or local government for a public purpose.
The actual language is copy and pasted into the video description, so feel free to pull that and copy and paste it exactly. If that exact language is not there, then your federal tax exemption could potentially be kicked back later on. I very strongly suggest you go and check out some sample Form 202s. Again, not to belabor the point, but the most frequent reason that these forms get kicked back, almost always, these forms are kicked back for clerical reasons, and very seldom does the kickback have anything to do with the actual substance. If there are things that you miss on the Form 202, you can always go back and amend those in the future. I would suggest trying to get this right the first time, because as you have those amendments, the actual formation paperwork, the stack of paper that forms your entity is gonna grow and grow and grow with every amendment. And in the future, people will ask you for this paperwork. If you're applying for grants, or if you are filing for tax exempt status, or for a great many reasons in the future, this business formation paperwork will come into play. For the Other Ones Foundation, that stack of paperwork is like 20 pages deep because so many amendments were filed as time went on. That is one of the reasons why we're even making these videos in the first place. So you can skip all of that headache of having to go back and file amendments and change the substance and add language or take language away to this formation paperwork. If you can get this formation paperwork done the first time, you get a nice, clean formation paperwork, and you'll have that forever. All right, so what happens now? Now you've filed this paperwork, you've paid the very nominal fee to get this paperwork submitted to the Secretary of State. Typically, this is gonna get turned around within 30 days. If, for some reason, you need this nonprofit formed today, you can pay a little bit of extra money. I think it's like $35 to get this paperwork turned around in 24 hours. There's an expediting fee. Probably, if you're thinking about paying the expediting fee, it's because you're excited. So just take a beat, let it go, let it take 30 days. If you really need it done quickly though, you can get it done for a small extra fee. Well, I think that's about all we need to know for the time being for forming a nonprofit corporation in the state of Texas. Please remember that forming this corporation does not now mean that you are a tax-exempt entity or that donations to this nonprofit corporation can be tax-exempt by the donor. We're not there yet. We still have to file to become a 501c3 or 501c4 or whatever federally recognized tax-exempt status you're after. We still have to go and do that. We will talk about that more in the next video. We'll be talking about the federal tax designation, so that will apply no matter what state you're in. And if you have any questions about forming a nonprofit corporation in the state of Texas or what might come next, then leave those questions below and we'll either do our best to answer them here or answer them in the next video. Thanks for watching. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, share, and let us know what you want to know. We'll do our best to make that content for you.